Hello everyone in EDCI 5720. This is Patrick, part 2 of our Module 4 introductory video. And this is going to be all about practice. I'm going to show you some of the activities that I feel very strongly about, that have strong research support in the area of blending and early decoding. There's going to be a part 3 to this Module 4 video that will be more pattern level and advanced decoding. Okay, but I think it's easier to sort of upload these and for you to watch them in shorter increments. So today we're going to attack what you see up here on the chart. At the end of the first video, we looked at the issue of phonemic awareness, teaching the simple segmenting and blending of sounds in speech. Okay, now critical prerequisite skill for both decoding words and spelling them. Today we take one little half step forward. It's what you're going to read about in my short article from the reading teacher, what I like to call phonemes in use. A lot of this stuff has traditionally been kind of under the category of alphabetic principle or alphabetic principle instruction. I think it's more direct, it's more accurate to call it phonemes in use. These activities feature a continuing careful focus on segmenting or blending the phonemes in words, but adds the element of letters to either spell or read words. So you are going to read about these, and hopefully that piece is pretty clear in describing them. But let me show you a couple, one on the spelling side, one on the reading side. Okay, first we're going to look at what's been called stretch to spell, or in my article, we called it scaffolded spelling early on. It's a very careful process with kids who are just learning a set of letter sounds, who are developing a phoneme segmentation ability. And now we put those together and it shows kids why they learn letter sounds, that they can actually write words when they do so. Okay, so it goes like this. Let's say I have my small group that I'm working with, either in the regular classroom or intervention setting. Say, kids, let's do our stretch to spell. I want you to stretch out these words like you're stretching bubble gum from your mouth. You guys have all had bubble gum in your mouth and grabbed it and stretched it out. We're going to do the same thing with these words so that we can really listen carefully for the sounds in those words. So our first word is going to be man. I want you to stretch the word man. So grab it right at your mouth and let's stretch it out. Man. Good. One more time. But this time, I want you to stop right at the beginning of the stretch. And we're going to hear just the first sound in man. So we go. Okay, good. Now, the first sound in man. What letter do we know that makes that sound? And let's say our small group has whiteboards and they've learned this small set of letters. And they say, M, Mr. Mania. Great. Want you to write an M. Okay, let's go back to our stretch. Want you to stretch it a little farther and stop in the middle of the stretch. Ma. Okay, what do you hear in the middle of man? What's making that ah sound? Good, that's the A. Let me go over this a little. Okay, let's get to the end of our stretch now. Man. What do you hear at the end? Man. Okay, and what letter do we know makes that sound? And great. Okay, let's read our word. What's our word here? Man. Great. And we go forward, maybe 2 or 3 other words. We might go through man and bat and sat and so forth. Just a small set of words because this is very deliberate work, still really emphasizing the issue of phonemic awareness, hearing and segmenting those sounds. But now we're adding the idea of what letter makes that sound to spell words. Okay. On the other side, we use word wall boxes for a short time, very strategically, to really emphasize high frequency words. Okay, let me show you. One thing we know about high frequency words, a lot of times these are called sight words. To me, that's inappropriate label. That's a misunderstanding. For you and I as mature adult readers, we have hundreds of thousands of sight words. Or maybe not that many, but tens of thousands of sight words. Words that we recognize automatically by sight that are really no different than like or can or as or the. Okay? What these really are high frequency words that we want to learn by sight. And then we want kids to go on and learn a bunch of other words by sight. So here we go. Early on, a lot of times we get into sort of learning these words simply by looking at them on flashcards. The problem with that is that if I flash the word like, say like, I could do that 10 times. There's nothing about that sequence of flashing the word like that's helping the kids get inside that word and see how it works, to see how those phonemes and graphemes match up. It's actually prompting kids to read that word in a whole word kind of way, which is really inefficient. Because like looks like a whole bunch of other words, and it's hard then to retrieve them automatically from memory. Even with these higher frequency words, we know from research, even when there's irregularities, most of the phonics elements in irregular words are regular. Take a word like have. Now, there's no reason at all why that A in have should make it short sound like it does. That is truly an irregular element. But notice that the H is behaving regularly, the E is behaving, or at V, and really the E is behaving regularly in the sense that it's a silent final E. So 3 out of the 4 elements in this quote-unquote irregular word are behaving regularly, and this is the one that's sort of behaving irregularly. What we know from research is that it's actually the regular elements and the mapping of those onto speech sounds that help kids establish this word in long-term memory. So really what happens is that these become the strong pillars of sort of long-term retention of this word, and basically we put a little mental asterisk in our representation of that word above a letter like the A, or a silent S in island or something like that. And really we store this word just like we would store a regular word like man, except that we put a little asterisk. So when kids first begin to learn high frequency words, we want to teach them in a way that's not simply look at the word, sort of take a picture of it as a whole. We want to teach it in a way that helps them to see how the elements, regular or irregular, map onto speech sounds. So we've used these word wall boxes down in kindergarten, maybe beginning first grade. Now this is a very detailed, very tedious process, if you will. And so we don't do it for a long time. And as soon as kids are, able to decode pretty competently, they no longer need this level of detail. But for a short while, this is what I like to call the half step, that for certain kids is that very necessary sort of half step. So let's take a word like, and we say, okay, kids, here's the word like. Show me your fingers. Let's count the sounds that we hear in like. So we hear like. How many fingers? 3. So 3 sounds in like. The kids all have, say, this half sheet with a couple sets of word wall boxes. I want you to count your boxes. 1, 2, 3. Cross out everything else. We're not going to use them because we only hear 3 sounds in like. Now, let's go back to our fingers, our sounds. What's our first sound in like? Oh. And this becomes a lot like the stretch to spell. What letter do we know makes that sound? L, great. I. Oh, that's the I, long I, great. And what sound at the end? Okay, it could be the C or K. In this case, it's the K, and we might talk this through. Now, guys, there's one more letter in like, and for silent E's, we teach them to make this small E at the end. It's really that we don't hear it, it doesn't make a sound. Its job is actually to make that I say its own name. Okay, go ahead and write like over here on the line, and we do this so we have a nice clean list of words for them to read at the end. So let's say we do like, take a word like they, go through the same process, a, two sounds, cross out these. Now, what letter or letters do we know that makes that th sound? Well, it's of course the TH, and someone says that if we've been studying it. Now, guys, how about the A? And we might get a couple of guesses, but we might have to show them. In this case, it's the E and the Y together. So these are truly sound boxes or Elkonin boxes. There could be 2, even 3 letters in one box, but they represent one sound. And let's say we're going to stop for today after just 2 high-frequency words in our word wall boxes. Then we come to the side. Guys, let's read our list. Like they. Good. Turn to your partner, read your words. Like they, back to the other partner, like they, and we're moving on. Notice the difference between this and showing a flashcard of they 10 times. Nothing about that flashcard helps the kids break down that word, get inside it, and make that phoneme grapheme map that we saw yesterday in the first video. Really binds that word in long-term memory. Okay, moving on. Let's look at the issue of blending and early decoding. Now we've got kids who truly do have the prerequisites of some phonemic awareness and some letter sound knowledge, and we're ready to really start reading words. What we know about blending is that, number one, it needs to be taught. It's not enough for kids to just have phonemic awareness and just have letter sounds. Yeah, a lot of kids at that level will jump in and begin to read, but there's no question that if we teach explicitly a strategy for blending, kids perform better. Okay, so the idea about blending is to make it progressive. I'm probably not telling our elementary teachers anything new. Where kids will struggle is holding too many phonemes in their head at one time. I had a kid I worked with in first grade who would always do something like this. Pot. He would, by the time he got to the 3rd phoneme, he had lost the earlier phonemes and would take that final phoneme and just make up a new word. So it was always, or top. So the idea to simplify this is to do this progressively, to blend as we go, so there's never a time where you have to hold too many phonemic elements in your head at one time. So I like the arm blending strategy, kind of made popular by the Fundations folks. You see that out in Sweetwater County where my student teachers go. So let's take that as an example. I had what? Top. We use shoulder, elbow crook, and hand, or shoulder, elbow crook, wrist, and fingers. So with top, I might say, kids, let's arm blend this word, and I have top written up here. Here we go. We've got t, p. Now, first 2 together, ta, p. Now, whole thing, top. And so, in that fashion, we never actually blend we never actually hold all 3 phonemes in our head at one time. Okay, now, if we get to 4, let's say the word past. We go s, wrist, t, fingertips. Let's blend the first 2. Past. All right, first 3. Past. And the whole word, past. Okay, that's a beginning blending strategy that gets away from this. I've got past. Can't remember what I had at the beginning. Okay, it's very, very useful. All right, let's go on. I'm trying to be kind of quick. Don't want you guys watching videos all week. Now, the other thing about early decoding that is critical is that we need to emphasize reading all the way through the word. The number one problem with struggling decoders at every level is to sound the first letter and then guess, or to sound the first consonants and guess. So the kid who again let's say they hit, a word like ranch, and they go run, and just abandon that effort to read through the word. That is, again, the hallmark of a struggling decoder at every level. For multi-syllable words, maybe for our 7th graders, it's start with the first syllable and guess. And we need to build that commitment to reading all the way through the word. So let me show you a tremendous error in a lot of early decoding teaching. Take a look at these two lists. Here's number 1, hat, hot, hop, hip. Here's number 2, hat, cat, fat, sat. Which of these lists would be better for kids to use to practice decoding if we're going to decode a list of words? I see a lot of list number 2. What we call them the phonogram families or the word families, and teachers in the primary grades will list them and have kids read down. Huge problem. If our number 1 problem is to read the first letter and guess, watch what this list actually promotes, what it leads kids to do. You say, kids, let's read these at words. They all end in at. So here we go. Hat, cat, fat. Uh-oh, I've already lost them. They already know that the latter part of the word is at. They don't even have to look at it anymore. All they have to do is sound that initial consonant and then say at. And so we're actually teaching towards the problem, which is look at the first letter, tune out the rest of the word, and in essence guess. Now in this case they're going to guess right because these are all sort of repetitive or rhyming. And another way to say this is, how much reading work do kids have to do to read this list? Very little. All you have to do is sound the first letter and then just say at. I don't even have to be looking at my text, do I? In beginning reading, just follow the more work is better principle. Kids have to work hard in beginning reading, or they're probably learning inefficient strategies, ineffective strategies like first letter and guess. Contrast that to our first list. Kids, we're going to read this list of words. You're going to see how important it is to read all the way through this word. Let's decode our first word, hat. Okay, second word, notice where the letters change. Now we need hot. Good. Third word, notice where we have a change. We have to read all the way through it. Hop. Last word, all the way through, hip. And you can see, probably just in my running through, which one is more reading work? Far and away, this one. I have to get to the end when that final or medial sound changes. Okay? Follow the hard work principle in beginning reading. The harder kids work, the more sort of skills they're developing. They need to work hard to read to the end of the words. Okay? So we know from research, when kids miscue in early decoding, they actually read the initial consonant correctly about 95% of the time. Okay? In here, the final consonant, that drops down to, these are going to be approximations. I should have looked at this study, about 70. So they make many more errors there. Medial vowel, as you can guess, most errors, that drops down to about 55% correct. So, kids generally get the first consonant in any word, or the initial sound. And So we need to teach towards where they're going to struggle, which is the end of the word or especially the vowels in the middle of the word. And so this kind of word building is what really promotes that. Let me show you the word building activity we use in just about all of our early interventions. So kids have a little pocket chart and a set of letters like this, or just the letters themselves. This is word building. Notice how the focus goes to the final consonant and initial vowel. This is a very directed, so I might say, kids, I want you to get out your P, followed by your E, then your T. Let's read the word. We've got pet. Good. All right, we're going to change pet. I want you to pull out your E and put in an O. We've just changed one letter. Let's see what our new word is. We have to read it to the end. Pot. Good. Pot. Great. Pull out your O. I want you to put in an A. We've got the word pat. Good. You guys read it, and they maybe read it. Good. I want you to now stretch out your T, slide in this S. Let's see what our new word is. Past. Good. Past. Super. I want you to slide out your A, slip in your E, and we've got the word pest. You guys read it? Pest. Super. Again, contrast this to the popular sort of word family approach. The attention all goes to medial and final. Not that we wouldn't occasionally switch out the initial, no problem there to make a nice list. Now, the other thing I do while the kids were making and reading, I chart these words so we can come back to them. The problem with working with letters is that word disappears. And I don't think I have my exact, I'm not sure I have my exact list here, but I would have been charting these because then I have a record. We can come back to this. I go, great job with word building today. Let's look at all the words we built and read them for me. What's our first word? And again, I'm going to have my small group read. Pet. Good. Pat. Good. Past. Good. Pest. Good. Reinforce at the end. Guys, you did a great job. You really read to the end of the words, which you had to do because our changes came towards the end, didn't they? Good readers always read to the end of the word. We're moving on, but I maybe put that up on the board. Oops, and I can come back and we could read it 2 or 3 times during the day. That repeated exposure. Okay. All right, we're going to stop there. Call it a wrap. So you've seen some of the emphases that I place on phonemes and use, this careful, deliberate process. You could overdo this. Once kids are competent decoders, once they're up and running, blending and so forth, we don't need quite as deliberate and detailed of instruction. But it's that wonderful half step that really builds that strong prerequisite skill to be an independent decoder. We've seen the emphasis on blending, using some sort of strategy, whether it's with the arm or whether it's a straight up kind of text, and we go, guys, what sounds do we have? Good. Let's blend the first 2. Ma, and people will do that. Great. Man. What's our word? Man. Okay. Those kinds of things, really important for certain kids who need that progressive blending. And then my last point, really emphasizing reading all the way. I can't say how critical that is to break kids early on of that #1 problem of first letter and guess. You know, I don't think there's ever a time when I would use this kind of phonogram family in early decoding. There's just no reason for it. It actually prompts kids to do just this, to stop it, to only attend to the initial sound and not to the rest of the word. This kind of careful word building where we actually make kids work on what's hard for them. The final consonant and medial vowel, critically important. And word building is a way to do that. I actually have Isabel Beck is the one who sort of shared this with the field. I'm going to put up her she has a whole sequence of word building lists that I will post on the website. I will be back for one more video that will look more at the advanced decoding level. Thanks, and out.